In our most recent video in this infinite series of videos, Professor Peter Kreeft talked about suffering in relation to the natural world. Moving on, Pete Kreeft tells us about the psychological benefits of believing.
Moreover, the believer in God has an incomparably easier time than the atheist psychologically, as well as logically, in dealing with the problem of natural suffering.
Finally, we've come to a point of partial agreement. The believer does have it easier psychologically, in exactly the same way the anesthetized have it easier when they go under the knife and have surgery. Just slip a little God into your IV and the brutal, painful reality of our world, that horrible natural world God created just for us, will simply slip away under the powerful influence of imagined afterlives and a good God who, well, he couldn't get things right here, but will surely have things figured out by the time you reach the after party. Unless you, for some reason, geography, a skeptical mind, misguided indoctrination into the wrong religion, etc., have chosen to believe in the wrong God, or no God at all. In which case, that after party will be the worst hangover you've ever had. I have a dear friend who has chosen not to come out to her family because they would be tortured for the rest of their natural lives by the thought of her being tortured forever in the next. Are you feeling that psychological comfort of belief like I am? It's tingly and it's very warm. It's almost like a burning in my bosom. Pete Kreeft continues.
If you accept that a good God exists, it is possible to also believe that this God somehow sets things right.
Wait, if possible, somehow? Hey, Pete, did you just get your Amazon big box of qualifiers? You know you don't have to use them all in one sentence, right? For hitchin's sake, these are the guys believing this bullshit, and they can't even sell it with any confidence. If you accept, it is possible, somehow. And if my mother had wheels, she'd be a trolley car. Is there a thinner reed to lean on than faith in some supposed God who possibly, somehow, sets things right? And isn't the fact that God needs to set things right in some supposed future life the ultimate admission of God's incompetence and the believer's psychological desperation? Personally, I prefer gods who get things right the first time. But that's just me. Let's focus on that somehow, though, for just a moment, because it really does reveal the psychological neediness of the believer. The fact is, there are no actual details of how God sets things right.
People always ask me, so what happens in the afterlife? To which I can only respond, I don't know.
Apparently, ignorance really is bliss for some people. Except the details we do have are absolutely horrific. Eternal torture for those who don't believe properly. Good, kind, loving people burning forever in the pit of hell. Oh, there's also the fact that evil men who torture and murder innocent victims can be redeemed on their deathbeds with a simple profession of faith. The only way to take psychological comfort from these details is to check your brain at the pearly gates and, of course, bury your head in the sand until you get there. Pete continues.
For the atheist, on the other hand, no suffering is ever set right. There is no ultimate justice. The bad win and the good suffer. Earthquakes and cancers kill. End of story. Literally.
But for the believer, the details of how our suffering is set right are either non-existent or horrifying. Sure, believers can fill in the blanks to their liking and wish it were so, but non-believers interested primarily in soothing themselves with wishful thinking can do the same. It's as cheap a remedy as there is. Pete's ifs and possibles and somehows are clear evidence of nothing but a belief in wish fulfillment. The bad still win and the good still suffer. Earthquakes and cancers kill believers, Pete. Your insistence that there's more to the story is supported by nothing. And I don't see believers thrilled at the funerals of their loved ones, so happy that Biff or Pop has passed on to the eternal bliss of rainbows, unicorns, and lollipops. You may take comfort in your beliefs in the moment, my believing friends, but deep down you know there's nothing to them. It's why you hate people like me who point it out. It's the world's most delicate bridge made of sewing thread and cotton candy, and here I am jumping up and down on it. Is that peace or comfort to you, Pete? Living in fear of reality? And are you really unaware that such a cognitive shutdown has other consequences, in some cases, terrible consequences for the rest of us, indeed for the planet itself? Isn't it time you wake up and smell the reality? Oh yeah, that's awful. That's awful. I understand, Pete. If belief in God reduced suffering even slightly, I'd be all for it. But we have the data. The tribal war god of Abraham completely ruled the Western world for 1,000 years, leading to untold ignorance, intolerance, regrets, and yes, suffering on a massive scale. That people unthinkingly take comfort in such beliefs cannot take priority over the benefits of facing reality head-on, confronting our existential angst, summoning our courage, and believing in what is empirically undeniable, our ability to reduce the suffering of sentient beings on a global scale, on our own, here and now, no next life required. We don't even have to believe in that. We have been witnessing it for the last 400 years. But we didn't do it by wishing it so. We did the grueling, labor-intensive, tenacious work needed to discover the actual causes of our suffering and then put our brains to work conquering those causes, natural causes, reality-based causes over which we can have some say. It was never God punishing us or the torment of demons. It was the natural world, which, if ignored or wished away, cannot be surmounted. Closing your eyes will not keep the train from hitting you. And the last thing we need in this world is people seeking their own comfort while others are suffering. You can close your eyes tight and make all the wishes you want, or you can roll up your sleeves and start clearing the rubble. But only one of those will do any good for anyone. Thanks for watching. Nothing's as important as enlightening, humorous content. And with once weekly Patreon-supported Wellbrightron XL, you'll get that and so much more. And I think it's nice that there's a low risk of sexual side effects. Wellbrightron XL effectively delivers enlightening, humorous content with a low risk of sexual side effects. You'll feel great laughing again, all while life-enriching insights come at you left and right. Well, maybe just from the left. Wellbrightron XL is not for everyone. There's a risk of seizure-like laughter when taking Wellbrightron. This risk can increase if you've recently left your religion or consumed large amounts of marijuana. Don't use if you've recently stopped thinking clearly or are offended by religious or political satire. Be careful when mixing Wellbrightron with libertarianism, magical thinking, or regular doses of PragerU, which can increase blood pressure, sometimes severely. To reduce the risk of serious side effects, tell your cognitive advisor of any deficiencies in cognitive function or sense of humor. If religious, contact a secular advisor if you begin to have thoughts of apostasy, dancing, or sexual liberation. Don't stop taking Wellbrightron abruptly, as that may lead to extreme mood swings and frequent urination. Once weekly Patreon-supported Wellbrightron, humorous, enlightening content with a low risk of sexual side effects. Go to patreon.com/Mr. Deity to find out about once weekly Wellbrightron XL. You'll laugh, you'll think, you'll feel better. And so will I.